Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. All right, speaking of images, Bard this week added images to its results as Google promised at Google I/O. You know, in a way, Google I/O and Google Marketing Live were the same event because it was all about AI, and it was just, they were kind of a mirror. The Marketing Live was kind of a mirror of I/O, talking about how AI is improving everything across Google. And I did, just as a kind of fun little aside, I counted the number of times that AI was mentioned in the Google Marketing Live keynote, and I have a little Twitter poll running, and people are. It has 4 choices, and the top choice is 415 or something like that. I forget. Bottom choice is 78. It's not either of those, but people are skewing to the highest one because they just assume it's all just AI, EIO. Anyway, so Bard has been, I'm interested in the potential of ChatGPT and Bard as alternatives to Google as a way to find local information or just general information. And so far, both of them, are not up to snuff. But I'm hopeful that as Google imports the knowledge graph and maps and other things into Bard, that it will become a really viable alternative to the main Google search. And one step in that process is bringing images in, and they did that yesterday, and it instantly improves the results that you even very simple results. It makes them a lot more appealing. It makes them a lot better. So I did a few searches, things to do, on vacation in Paris, and then also best restaurants in New York, just 2 quick things, and then I did some others. And what you get is a list, a simple list. Here's the identification of the thing, and then an image, and the image turns out to be a link to a website, which is identified in the corner of the image, the thumbnail. And usually it's to some sort of directory. Wikipedia is in there, but it's, in the case of restaurants, it's Time Out. There's Infatuation, I think, is in there, in Open Table. But it gives you a place to go and kind of get deeper information, and the visual information is really helpful. So I think that that's a positive thing for Bard. It also sort of implicates some sort of image optimization, although if it's coming through directories, you can't really do much about that as an individual business owner. So it'll be interesting to see how this evolves and what else happens as they start integrating more pieces of Google proper into Bard. And they've got to be pretty ambivalent about it. And I'm sure we'll see ads in Bard, of course. But they've got to be pretty ambivalent about it, because as they build out this search generative experience in Bard, they're kind of potentially, at least in hypothetically, fragmenting their audience, which they don't want to do, unless Bard just becomes another surface for them to pump ads into. But we'll see how it goes. But I was encouraged by that development.
That's my take on Bard. Is ultimately that they hope that whoever would have used ChatGPT is going to use Bard instead, and it's a way for them to maintain their right. Total ad inventory, even if that ad inventory is bifurcated.
I see it as a way for them to retain clients within their Office suite. I see Bard as really supplemental and complementary to Gmail and Docs. And I see their competition there as Microsoft bringing ChatGPT into those products.
Right.
So I see Bard there.
As you know, I think that is a much higher utility use case for chat tools than the actual search experience. Right. Greg, it strikes me that what you're describing is basically 10 blue links with image thumbnails.
Yep, exactly. So, but not even 10. The image
it's
thumbnails
not really.
are the links.
There's nothing remarkable about the power of the Bard search results. It's just, it's a different interface than what Google
it's a simpler, cleaner, ad-free interface right now, which I like.
I have one question about your query, things to do in Paris. Is that your new pizza query, or are you actually planning on going there?
No, I'm not going there. It's kind of too bougie in a way. I'm almost embarrassed to say that, but it's no, it's not my new pizza query.
Sushi.
My new
sushi query. Then.
Sushi query.
It's not my new sushi query either. But I think you guys are right that the higher utility is the workspace integration. Although I got access to Labs for my personal workspace account, and I tried to use Help Me Write, and it's not very good, at this point. I mean, maybe I'm lame with my prompts and I'm using it for the wrong things, but I've tried it for a number of things and it's just mediocre. But
I tried Bard with Recipe, which is for me should be a very visual experience. And they gave me a decent recipe. I said I had pecans and salmons around the house, and
salmons, multiple salmons,
salmon around the house. And what could give me a recipe? And it gave me a decent recipe, but it didn't give me any visual, which I thought if any place should include visuals, it should be a recipe, because recipe is an area where search is. Google is lacking. They don't deliver search results directly. You got to go to these recipe sites, which are terrible.
They're horrible.
Nobody wants to go to them.
They're horrible.
They're all using Bard to write their content.
No,
it's the only service I actually subscribe to. I don't subscribe to the New York Times or the Financial Times or the Washington Post. I subscribe to Cook's Illustrated. That's it for me.
I subscribe to all of those on your behalf, Mike. So.
Well, thank you. You need to share the password, thoe.
Yeah. Well, speaking of sharing passwords, last night we got hit with the Netflix password sharing thing. So they make you. My wife tried to watch Netflix on our TV, and they make you confirm that this is a machine in your house, and then my daughter, who's living in San Francisco now, who's been using our account, had to register as a extra, whatever they call it. That you can pay for people outside your house if you want, but it's like $7.99, which is a better deal than their basic plan without ads. The ad-free plan, I think, is $6.99 a month. Anyway, so what a mess. How do we get out of this? Yes.
Thank you for joining us this week.
Yes. Yeah. All right. So next week I think we're going to run. We did an interview which I teased last week with Darby Sieben, who's the Chief Product Officer of Unbounce. We talked about how AI is being integrated into their product suite and larger reflections on where the market is going. I think we're going to run that this next week and take the week off in the U.S. for all our non-American listeners. It's Memorial Day, so we're not going to publish a newsletter on Monday, and we'll kind of take it easier next week. Recovering from all the hard partying and yard work that's going to happen this weekend. So, all right, with that, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.